If you're on the search for a new car and your needs are a car that's practical, cheap to buy and cheap to run, then can I introduce you to the Citroen e-C3. Yes, this is the Citroen e-C3, one of the cheapest EVs that you can buy currently on the UK market. And yes, Citroen already have a very low cost EV in their lineup in the Citroen Ami, but that is classed as a quadricycle, is not really a practical everyday car. This, on the other hand, starts from less than £23,000, much cheaper than your BYD Dolphin, much cheaper than the MG4 EV. And all round, it's a very good package and very value for money. And as the car market pushes towards an all-electrification future, this EV could be deemed as a perfect starter kit or a very good value for money alternative to a low-cost runaround. And despite the e-C3 being a brand new model, it's already receiving the plaudits. Because the Citroen e-C3 was crowned Car of the Year at the Auto Express New Car Awards of 2024, which is a rather remarkable achievement considering the price tag this EV comes with. Two specs of Plus and Max offer an electric car from as little as just over the £22,000 mark, making it one of the cheapest new EVs on the market. And what do you get for that pretty small price tag? You'd probably be looking at it thinking, this car will only have the necessities, won't have any real style or character. And I'm glad to say, I'm pleasantly surprised, because although the finish inside this car isn't exactly luxury, it has some design, it has some character about it. It's a pretty good looking car. You have different colours, patterns, materials to make up the dash and the seats, which all tie in design features of this car, and also Citroen, because the panelling along the dashboard is very similar to the actual Citroen branding. Nice metallic finish by your automatic gear selector and your two cup holders, and also a nice addition of a wireless phone charging pad. Nice leather wrapped steering wheel. It is pretty small, it's kind of reminiscent of what you might find in a Peugeot. However, I think for the size of this car is not that big of an issue. And you also have oil controls for your speed limiter and your volume controls all within reach. Now, the Citroen e-C3 is described not to have a digital dash, but somewhat of a head-up display. It's almost a bit between a head-up display and a digital dash, because you have this small segment in your line of vision when you're driving. Yes, it might not be revolutionary in terms of what it's actually doing, but it shows what you need to, your traffic sign recognition, your mile range, your battery percentage, and your speed that you're currently going. In the centre, you have your touchscreen infotainment system, and it certainly doesn't feel cheap. It's pretty responsive. You have sat-nav already built in, you have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and you also have multiple charging points around the vehicle. It's a pretty simple system, but it's easy to navigate. It's not laggy in any way, shape or form, and it has everything that you need. And you've got to think, for that price tag, it certainly is value for money. And even just like nice little features which don't really need to be there, but it kind of just gives this car a bit of character. On each door, in the front and the back, you have little red labels. This one says, have fun. And do you know what? I'm going to take this out for a drive, and I reckon I might have some fun. When it comes to the drive for the e-C3, well, it's not exactly thrills. However, I don't think you were expecting that. A 0 to 60 time of around 10.4 seconds, making it ever so slightly slower than its counterparts in the MG4 EV, the BYD Dolphin and the Aura 03. However, you have got to think of the value for money for this car. But what I will say is, because this isn't an EV, you do get that instant torque off the line, meaning when you're pulling onto roundabouts, onto dual carriageways, onto slip roads and motorways, it's not necessarily that bit of a problem, because your 0 to about 35 mile an hour feels pretty nippy. You don't feel sluggish at all, it certainly doesn't feel like a slow car. Is when you get to the 45-50, that's when the car starts to slow down, but at that point you're almost joining the motorway and you kind of don't really need to push off further than that. So I wouldn't say it's limited at all. Pulling out of junctions, yes, you might think this car isn't quick, but like I said, it's an EV, so you do get that instant pull off the line, you get that instant torque that you don't get with combustion cars. And 0 to 60 in 10.4 seconds, if you look across the car market and you look at a lot of sort of value for money, or even mid to high-end SUVs, they're 0 to 6 times around about the 9-second mark anyway. So 10.4, I won't really say it's the end of the world. In terms of practicality, well, the e-C3 ticks all the right boxes. Because your climate controls are separate buttons, because your speed limiter controls on your steering wheel are so easy to use, and that head-up display showing the settings of your speed limiter is in your direct view of sight, it basically means that You're not taking your eyes off the road at all when it comes to changing your controls, when it comes to finding out where you need to go, etc, etc. And I will say it's a very comfy car with a decent amount of space. Now, this isn't necessarily deemed an SUV, but it kind of feels like it with how freeing this car feels when you're driving. This car isn't meant for someone who does long driving. This car isn't meant for someone who spends a lot of time in this car. It's meant for a cheap alternative that we're going to see in the future to everyday around town driving or around city driving. This could be the next new city car. And even though this is deemed a cheap car, the addition of heated steering wheel and heated seats kind of add that bit of luxury and really screams value for money. And I think Citroen should really be celebrated for that. You know, they've not just made an affordable, cheap car and kind of just put the necessities into it to make the car drive. They've had the customer, they've had the driver almost at the forefront of their plans and made a car that isn't just affordable, but definitely practical. And for a car that starts less than £23,000, it's certainly not an ugly looking car. It's very modest in its design. The main clear design feature on the front is this branding across the middle, which actually links up perfectly with the new Citroen logo. You have bold LED headlights with daytime running lights and another design feature down here. The overall look and feel of this car certainly doesn't scream frills, but in my eyes it screams practicality. It certainly isn't a bad looking car. For me, it's modest in the way it looks, it's smart, and I think it's quite cute. With 17-inch alloy wheels, two-tone roof and LED daytime running lights as standard, the look certainly doesn't shout cheap. And the rear of the car also has a very smart look about it. You have this bold strip which matches up to the one at the front of this car, that prominent Citroen badge with them two bold rear lighting. Slightly accentuated rear bumper, although it's that sort of scratchy plastic, it means that if you're getting heavy things in and out of this car, then you're not going to scratch any paintwork, so it's more practical rather than good looking design. Now your boot capacity is decent for a car of this size, 310 litres, which is actually bigger than the Oro 03, previously named the Funky Cat, and this car is actually cheaper than that. Although if you're looking towards the BYD Dolphin and the MG4, they have a slightly bigger boot capacity, but 310 litres I don't think is the end of the world. Like I said previously in this video, this car would be ideal for a perfect low-cost runabout or a starter kit EV. Almost if you were a family, you'd have a large SUV and then this to follow up. So in my eyes, a large boot capacity isn't necessarily the end of the world considering the price tag that this car comes with. Because as I've mentioned, this is one of the most affordable EVs on the market, and with two value for money specs in the Plus and Max, which range between 22 and 23,500. The specs are pretty straightforward, almost a running theme to this car, because you get plenty of features such as wireless CarPlay, cruise control and hill start assist as standard. The more premium features such as wireless phone charging, heated seats and steering wheel and parking cameras come with the max spec at a pretty reasonable cost. In terms of battery sizes, there is only one option, a 44 kWh battery, which provides practical usage. Now then, let's talk mile range and charging, because the official recorded mile range for the e-C3 is 199 miles, and it's very good in the way it uses that battery and utilises as much mile range as possible. And although a 199 mile range might be towards the lower end of EVs in the market, it's definitely not the lowest. There are quite a few options on the EV market that you're roughly speaking 193 or less, so 199 isn't too bad. And I think for what this car stands for, I feel a lot of that mile range will be used in towns in 30-mile-an-hour zones. Now, if you were to take the e-C3 on a slightly longer drive, then don't worry, because this car supports fast charging up to 100 kilowatts, meaning you can get from 10 to 80% in around about half an hour. Now, if you needed the Citroen e-C3 to be a family vehicle and not just an everyday low-cost runabout, then I'm sure your kids would be happy in the back of this car, which ties in perfectly with my little red label down here, which says, "Be happy." And I think they would, because there's a decent amount of space. You've got pockets down here, a little storage behind the seat, two USB-C ports, so if you're going on a bit further drive, they can charge their mobile devices. A centre armrest would be nice, but I don't think it's the end of the world, because it's a very roomy car. It's kind of a small compact SUV crossed with a larger hatchback. It's in that sort of middle ground, so you do get a decent amount of space in this vehicle. The seats, same style as the front. Overall, they're very comfy. It's a very pleasant back seats, and I'm certainly happy in the back of this car. And with all that said, the Citroen e-C3, for me, is certainly an excellent value for money vehicle. Yes, there are no necessarily frills about this car, but it's a smart design inside and out, and it's a rather practical mile range of 199 miles. Yes, might not be fast and furious out on the roads, but personally what this car stands for is showing that you can get a very affordable EV, and if you do need just a cheap runabout vehicle, get it from A to B, and if you're someone who doesn't do much driving, then this could be an ideal car for you. And as the car world pushes towards an all electrification future, this is a sign of things to come, showing what we can do with the technology, and the EVs don't have to break the bank. If you are interested in this car, then contact Wilmer Citroen.